some introductions, and I'll introduce myself, and we'll jump right into it. Okay. Hi, everyone. I know a handful of you. My name is Mech. Just in case anyone forgets, I have the mirror version here for a reminder. I help run the openlibrary.org website at the Internet Archive. Internet Archive is a nonprofit. Assuming many of you are either coming from Google Summer of Code or from the openlibrary.org website itself, or are friends of the archive, so you probably have a little bit of background about what the Internet Archive is. But for anyone who is joining us through the recording remotely, the Internet Archive is a nonprofit California state accredited library. We are a digital library, which means all of the books that we have are available online, and we use controlled digital lending, which is our way of offering the same type of protected service that physical libraries do in brick and mortar locations. We're probably most famous for the Wayback Machine. A Wayback Machine is the website you can go to where you put in a URL like google.com, and it will allow you to explore 20 years of history of that website. And so you can go back in time, and we can show a demo, a screen share of any of these things if folks are interested. But I thought I would start by introducing myself, and I would love to hear from some of you who I've known for quite a long time now, like Tavish and Lisa, and now Eddie and Guy and Brittany. So my name is Mech. I started volunteering with the Internet Archive somewhere around 2013. Someone who was a real inspiration to me was a young man named Aaron Swartz, who was a champion of open access knowledge. And he was involved in a lot of really important projects, including creating the Open Library. But he also fought for net neutrality back in the SOPA-CISPA days, and is one of the big reasons so many companies were willing to jump on board and act in solidarity to fight some of the internet censorship that was happening back then, and unfortunately still exists today. But a lot of the progress that we see is because of Aaron. Also, he was one of the co-founders of Reddit, which people are often surprised to hear. And he had a variety of projects, including Demand Progress, which was an initiative, which remains an initiative for supporting social net activism and digital rights. And unfortunately, he was involved in a United States case where he was accessing academic papers from an MIT facility, and there was this whole thing where he got in a lot of trouble and ended up taking his life because he had no options out. And so I think a lot of us in the community felt a huge gap from Aaron, who had spent his life trying to make sure people had access to American legal documents. That's a really fascinating thing that I won't take too much of a tangent into, but it's quite hard for the average American citizen to access legal proceedings. A lot of them, even though they're hosted by nonprofits, you have to pay per page. They call it meeting their costs and trying to cover their baseline. But really, to us, it just seems like a broken system. And the Internet Archive has even offered to host all of these documents for free, because we don't think that price should be a limiting factor to people in the United States accessing their own law. And Aaron also believed that, and had helped contribute to the founding of projects like RECAP, which was an extension of PACER to try to get legal documents accessible to more people. So between books, academic papers, net neutrality, and American legal documents, Aaron was kind of all over the board a champion of open access knowledge, and he left a huge gap. And so right around 2015, I started as a volunteer and joined openlibrary.org and the Internet Archive, which was at the time a project that had really slid into only being run by a skeleton crew. So there was like half an engineer. So that's one person's half time that was keeping the website up and running for over 1 million patrons. And fast forward to today, it's around 4 years later, and we now have tripled the number of patrons that are able to enjoy Open Library and Internet Archive's resources. We have a community of over 100 people now who have contributed to openlibrary.org, both as librarians and as engineers, as people who have helped curate content. Maybe they wrote blog posts or helped build displays on openlibrary.org, like our carousels, themed carousels. It's been an enormous privilege to work with people from the community, people who are extremely selfless, some people who are not being paid. They're coming on their own volition because they believe in building the world's library together. I know I was certainly in that camp as well, and feel really privileged to now be a staff member at the archive. So as I mentioned, folks are probably here for a variety of reasons. One is the Google Summer of Code program. Every year, Google sponsors a collection of projects to work with paid student researchers and interns on different projects. And for the past few years, the Internet Archive has been selected for the Google Summer of Code program. Last year, Tabish worked with us as an Internet Archive Summer of Code candidate. The year before, Solomon worked through the Google Summer of Code program, and we're hoping that we have enough seats so that Open Library also gets to participate. And if you click on the onboarding document that I shared on the Open Library Slack, you'll see the last section in the Google Doc has a Google Summer of Code overview, which describes how to get set up as a developer, forming your idea, collecting community feedback, and also how to connect with me and other mentors on the project. So I've been rambling on here. This call is really about you, the community. And one of the reasons there's so many of us here is kind of on the news and update side of things. This last week, the Internet Archive, in solidarity with over 100 different organizations, libraries, and individuals across the country, launched the National Emergency Library. This is because the coronavirus pandemic has left many Americans across the country without access to the physical libraries that they rely on. And so one thing that I didn't truly appreciate until I worked at a library is that libraries offer a lot more services than just books. In fact, I would say that that books are completely dwarfed by the fact that libraries have local resources. They have computers that enable people to search for jobs. They oftentimes even help with tax information and pointing people in the right direction. They're just an amazing resource. And so the Internet Archive is only able to fill in a very small gap there by offering books. But the real idea, in case anyone has questions, is that there are libraries all across the country that have books that they can't lend out. And so we've been working together to try to create a digital library, which for a short time does not have wait lists, so that classrooms have full access to the materials that they otherwise may have been supported by libraries. And I think because of this increased attention that both the Internet Archive, archive.org, and also openlibrary.org have started to see, there's also been a large increase in people who have been excited to contribute to the project, represented by a lot of the folks who are also on this call. And so before jumping into a tutorial and answering questions, I was hoping maybe we could go around and give a short introduction of who we are, how we found out about Open Library, why we're here, and what specifically is the opportunity that we're excited to plug into, whether that's a role or whether there's a specific thing that you think the Open Library should be doing to better serve our international audience. And given that Jessica has been so kind as to help us set up for this Zoom call with the recording, Jessica, I was hoping maybe you'd be willing to go first with an introduction.
Really happily. Oh, heck, there I am. I'm one of those weirdos who has a little privacy screen on my computer. But hi, I'm Jessica Rose. I'm from the States, but based in the UK now. I'm a former teacher who works in tech, and I'm an advocate around educational access and especially technical education. I was recently impacted by the Mozilla layoffs, so I had a little bit of free time. So I thought I'd use some of my time inside to pitch in a bit.
Well, we are so glad to have you here. My heart definitely goes out to the staff at Mozilla. I know that they've been having to make really tough decisions, and I know the Internet Archive has been in a similar situation more recently with the coronavirus pandemic. I know it's really hit our scanning centers hard. The Internet Archive employs around 50 imaging specialists who actually digitize our material across the country and across the world. And because there are so many issues with safety, we're trying to keep as many people on basically a paid leave as possible to try to help survive this thing. But I know this is really hit a lot of people hard, and so I don't want to take that lightly. And even outside of the scope of Open Library, I would like everyone to know that I'm here as a resource to connect you to anyone who I can. If you are looking for opportunities, we have a really strong network, and it's great that people are coming to Open Library to volunteer, but at the end of the day, I see my role as a steward of the Internet Archive as trying to help the community both access resources and information and opportunities. If Open Library is an opportunity that we can help with, that feels really good. But I don't want to stop there. And I have a spreadsheet that friends have shared with me that lists, I think, something like 50 different companies that have remote opportunities. And I would be happy to share that in our Slack after this call. Jessica, I'm really happy that you're here. Thanks for contributing your time. It really means a lot to me. Britt, would you be interested in going next and giving an introduction?
Yeah, because I have to go somewhere for a few minutes after I do it. So who am I? I'm a volunteer on here. Um, let's see. How did I find out about it? It's because when I was in school, I had classes, and these classes, it's ridiculous how um, I would take a class and then they would shut down the website right after the class, and all my information and homework assignments and everything was on it. So I would go, I was like, and I'd go to all these websites, and it's like none of them would be available after a while. So it's like all this information's being lost on the internet that I need to access but can't. So I went on found the Wayback Machine, and used that, added to it. But I also found the Open Library, and I liked how, um, well, I don't know. I went on it a long time ago. I don't know why I initially went on it. Wait, is everyone? Oh, I don't know why I initially went on it, but I did. Um, and I started editing it. Um, but now I go on it because I feel like just like how the information's being lost to the internet, the information might be getting lost to libraries because libraries are losing their budget, and there's rare books and they deteriorate over time. And I just feel like with all this information, like especially like cultures, their languages get lost, like books can get lost too. It's like we got to keep up with keep preserving information as more information is getting on the internet. Like most of the information's been generated in the last 2 years. Like how is everyone going to be able to get to rare materials? It's so it's like the Open Library is going to help with that. And also it's like in the past I heard my parents would have to travel across countries just to find a book, and it shouldn't be like that. Like, people should be able to get information that they need. And also, I need a catalog to be able to look at the descriptions of something, so I don't have to take out a book. It's okay for me to take out a book and buy it if I want to read it, but I shouldn't have to buy a book to be able to read the description. Yet everything now is about buying books and limited ability to own books and stuff like that, which is not good. But I feel like the open library just helps with being able to look through things so quickly and easily, and that's why I like continue to contribute to it, and find out about it. Why am I here? I just am a volunteer who's gone on many sites. I've done like citizen science projects where I've like looked for exoplanets. I've been in like news scientific articles where I've found helped find new neurons. And so I am a person who like tries to build the world and make it a better place to live in. And I came to the site, I felt like it was kind of a mess and disorganized. I didn't know what was happening until you pointed out about Aaron Swartz. And so I'm like, I need to do my part in helping bring this back together and fix all the broken pieces. And so I feel like there's still so many broken pieces that I need to work on to fix. So that's why I'm here. And
Thanks so much
let's
for
see
it. And
what
also,
I want.
I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that we have enough time to cover
Yeah.
everyone's introductions.
Oh, I
So
just wanted to do the last one. What I want to plug into, just being able to fix every single piece until the open library is available to possible to do everything on its own, and then I could go to the next website and project. There you go.
right on. Thanks.
Mhm.
Guy, would you mind going next with an introduction?
Yeah, sure. So I've been a contributor to Open Library for about 6 months now. I originally found out about it while I was looking for like a data source or like a source of like books that have been published, and was kind of surprised with the dearth of possibilities. And so I stumbled upon Open Library, and I think the reason why I decided to contribute was I believe in open source software, even free access to data, unrestricted access to knowledge, and I think Open Library has made a very good dent in that. I think it still has some issues to work with, like data integrity and imports and things of that nature. And so that's where I particularly want to plug into, fixing the import process, making merging of records and conflated records easier, and also like dealing with like the backlog of data issues, so that it's a better data source in the future.
Thanks, Guy. Lisa, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm in Amsterdam. I've been a pretty active contributor to Open Library since about 2017 or so. I honestly can't say how I initially became aware of it. I gradually increased my participation and started participating in community calls, and was eventually invited to be a lead community librarian. So that's been since last summer, I think. I've been focused on trying to make the data quality better, so that people can more easily find what they're looking for. And again, as Guy mentioned, there are a lot of issues still with conflated records. So I've been really focused on cleaning these things up. But there's also so much more that can be done that, the team is too small to really accomplish everything. So it's good that there are a lot of new people coming on. I'm also trying to answer questions, write up guidelines, make the sites easier to contribute to as well as use. So please feel free to message me on Slack or any way at all. Really, email is fine too, and I will do my best to give you a hand.
All right. And I think I saw that. Oh, I'm going to actually read Ashank's message here. Ashank says, "Hey, I'm Ashank from India, doing my engineering and computer science. I love reading books, and I love the concept of digital libraries where we can get books so quickly and easily. I feel it's a great way to access books, and this is how future libraries should be. I want to contribute to Open Library and make it a better place by making it accessible by everyone across the globe. Thank you." Ishak, thank you so much for writing that introduction and also for being here. Ishak is one of our Google Summer of Code candidates. His proposal focuses on taking our texts and making them available as Braille in different ways to empower people who might have print disabilities. And I know that Ishank has also been an active contributor, not only in the Open Library GitHub, but also on our book reader. So thanks so much for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you. Don, I was wondering if you would like to go next? A newer face for me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Just real quick, I work on events for the Internet Archive, recording video and audio visual, and I'm just here to learn more about Open Library.
All right, that's right. It's so good to see you. Thanks for being here. Okay, Eddie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm a book dealer. I have a big warehouse full of 500,000 books, and I sling them across the internet daily, or at least was until this quarantine happened. So I got involved in the internet, this Open Library project about a month in January. I've been a fan, and then I realized that Brewster had bought Better World Books or something like that. And so I decided I had to go out there and meet these folks, and I did, and got to meet Mac, and he made me a librarian right away. And I was just super excited and spent like the next 2 weeks like binge editing, which to me was just the greatest thing to have happen at that moment. And took some like my favorite authors like Philip K. Dick and some topics like Shakespeare authorship, and tried to just weed and clear and, make nicer and bring in cover images and try to make some sort of complete bibliographic thing for at least like Philip K. Dick. And it was really awesome. And then I kind of laid off for the next couple months and have been just sort of sitting in meetings and imagining my place in the bigger system. I'm not a coder, but definitely a dreamer, and I'm really hoping that this project can become the infrastructure for some larger book thing, that book dealers can be saved from the grips of Amazon and extinction. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Eddie. Ali, would you like to go next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey guys, I recently joined the team. I guess it's been 2 weeks, and I'm currently a librarian based out of Alberta in Canada. And the last couple of weeks since I joined I've really just been cleaning up some records. I've been guided by Lisa throughout the process. She sort of helped me prioritize a few things that need to be worked on, and so I'm doing that. And I think in the process, just learning more about the Open Library. But as far as librarianship goes, I'm especially interested in libraries advocacy and collections management. Mac, you said that, of course, we all know that libraries are so much more than just books. And so I'm curious to know how we can bring some of that librarianship thinking to the Open Library. But for now, I'm especially just interested in learning more about how things go, the processes, and then hopefully I can contribute in more meaningful ways down the road.
Thank you, Ali. And I don't want to get myself too much on a tangent. Unfortunately, you triggered one of those excitement strings. But yeah, I've been very interested in thinking about how Open Library might be able to create landing pages of resources that may not simply be books. Like how can we have beautifully curated K through 12 educational resources that parents and educators can use to navigate elsewhere? How can we be a hub? And this is also, how can we be doing a better job of providing information from the experts who do know the most about the coronavirus pandemic? I think there's a lot of opportunities that enable us to stay focused, but also to do more as a community hub. And I'm not the right person to lead that, so I'm very excited to hear from librarians who have spent years training to develop an informed understanding on these topics. So thank you for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Tavish, would you like to wrap us up with? Oh no, did Tavish just jump off? Well, I'll speak for Tavish if that's okay. Tavish has been with us on the engineering side for around 2 years. Last year, he participated in the Internet Archive Summer of Code. Unfortunately, Open Library. I'm going to turn it over to you in a second, Tavish, if you can hear me. Last year, Open Library didn't receive a seat because the Internet Archive only received, I think, 2 or maybe 3 seats, and we didn't get the full number that we had applied for. And so we believed so strongly in Tavish that we created our own internship program called the Internet Archive Summer of Code. And during that, Tavish helped co-found the book sponsorship program at the Internet Archive and with Open Library. And this is the program where anyone in our community of 3 million patrons can democratically fund any of the books that they believe should be in our library. And we'll digitize it and make it available and give them the first borrow. And a lot of that planning, Tavish was an integral part. And I know he has some ideas for Google Summer of Code this year, but Tavish, now that you're back, maybe I can let you give your own introduction, which you'll do better than I can.
Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, it's been like 2 years since I joined Open Library. I was looking to contribute to some like open source projects, and I was just Googling things. So then I came across Internet Archive, and on the Internet Archive, I think volunteer page, the first project is Open Library. So then I dropped into Open Library's GitHub, and then like, yeah, it's been like since 2 years, and it's been great. Yeah, the community it's highly supportive and it's inclusive, and Mech has been a great mentor to me. And it's been great. I would like to help like the newcomers if they're interested in like developing the book sponsorship program further, and maybe contributing. They could hit me up, ping me, and anything. Yeah.
That's super generous. Thanks for that intro, Tavish. Okay, so we're right at the half-hour mark. Those are our introductions. And before I jump right into a tour, I was hoping we could really quickly, anyone who wants to, just step in and mention, let's line up a few questions that we might have. It would be helpful to know what folks' different levels of understanding of the system are and what questions they might have, whether it's what librarian projects do we have, or if I'm a communications or community specialist, how can I make the biggest impact? Or also, if I'm a part of Google Summer of Code, what's the next step? If I want to be a developer, what's the next step? Or even policy-wise, how does the Open Library work and what should I be aware of? What are some of the questions that folks have?
I hope mine's not too terribly specific, but as a sort of generalist who touches on several of the different skill sets you touched on, so some development work, quite a bit of community work, and an education background, what are sort of the and I know you have some listed on the document, which is helpful, but with all of you being so busy right now, what are sort of the easiest wins where somebody could go relatively new and knock stuff out without taking up staff resources to onboard?
That's a great question, and one that I'm very grateful for. you are extremely thoughtful, and I appreciate that. Um, I'm happy to make myself available, even if it means weekends like this. And I think it shows everyone's commitment. The fact that either we're all inside and have nothing to do, or we're the type of people who really want to use our time to help people the best we can. And I think that shows. I'm grateful to be here with y'all. In terms of easy wins, I think a good way to get started for technologists is to just get up and running with our development environment. I imagine a lot of people are going to get stuck even going through that process, and we want to be actively engaged. So the staff on Open Library is me, Drini Kami, who splits his time between the book reader and openlibrary.org, and then Charles Horn, who's about 75% on our library partnerships and Open Libraries Partnerships program, and around 25% keeping things running on Open Library. He does a lot of our imports and catalog. So we're happy to spend the time, and so many people in the community are happy to spend the time to help folks debug that process. And almost always, because we're moving as quickly as we are, either something goes wrong or this collaborative getting started process results in a better setup script for our community. So that's a very myopic answer that touches on engineering. Also on the technical side of things, and listed in this document, which I can maybe share my screen here really quickly, if that's okay. So in the document, we list a set of good first issues. Folks who are not very familiar with openlibrary.org or with the code base might consider these as good ways to get started. Each of these issues on our GitHub have a label, or should. This one doesn't. I'll add it right now. A label for good first issue. And in fact, if you click good first issue, the label, then you kind of get a menu of the different good ways to get started. There's a lot of issues here, 26 of them. And I think that these 7 are probably the best for getting started. So that's on the engineering front. And if we scroll all the way down here on the document, there's this first Google Summer of Code step, which is almost universal for anyone who wants to contribute as more of an engineer. That's getting started as a developer. Reading our contributing guide is a great first step. There needs to be a colon there. What's going on here? I see, 2 HTTPSs. And now not a colon. Thanks everyone for bearing with me. So on this page, it shows you what our processes are, how to set up a development environment, how to participate in the community, adding data to Open Library, whether it's by a bot or manually, picking tasks, some information about our roadmap, our development practices, etc. And also how we can submit a new pull request. A pull request is when we clone the actual code repository and make a change, and we want to push our changes for review back to the community. Now, the final step, as I just showed, is finding a good first issue. A lot of people don't feel prepared to jump directly into the engineering side of things, and I think that's a part of the question, is what are other good ways to get involved. And this kind of bleeds into the Tor, and I can't see anyone's face just for a second here, so just vocally, if anyone wants to give me feedback. Is this a good time to show some of the first good opportunities by walking through Open Library, the website itself? Is that okay?
Good with me.
Okay.
Awesome.
Seems like a good
right.
plan.
All right, thanks, folks. So on openlibrary.org, we can probably do a better job of making this obvious, but we are a library website. And so the first thing that you see are subjects where you can find books. So we're mainly about books. Archive.org, which is our parent website and organization, has all sorts of material like websites, books, movies, audio, over 2 million hours of television news that you can search through, full text search through. And also some really fun things like games and software that emulate directly in your browser, which is kind of mind-bending. So you can play an arcade game. If no one is familiar with this, this is fun enough to quickly try. So yeah, you don't need any additional software. We have like PlayStation 1 games and all sorts of kooky Atari games that you can play directly in your browser. So on openlibrary.org, we have two sets of books. We have books that you can read. Read is signifying that these are public access books. That means they are either public domain or they have been published under a permissive license, like Creative Commons, if that's a familiar license or term to folks. And if you click read, then I believe you're brought to the work page here. If we click read again, then it brings you right into the book where you can read the full thing without any restrictions. No borrowing is needed because this is a publicly accessible book. There's a search inside feature so that you can then, like I see the words do you agree here, so maybe do you agree, if I type that, then we would expect once this very slowly loads, we'll see some markers along the scrubber here or along the navigation, and here it shows us a result. We can flip to that page. There's also an audio reading feature, which I don't know if I started the screen share with audio, but here this is gonna kind of be neat. 1 second here. All right, so if I share again, share my sound. So now when I play this,
and her rooms were furnished for letting. Now it is a very odd thing that no one ever seems to furnish a room for letting in a bit the same way.
If that's a little slow, I can bump it up to 1.5 and
This room had heavy dark red stuff curtains, the color the blood would not make a stain on, of course lace curtains inside.
made this a little bit fast here.
The fireplace had shavings and tinsel in it. There was a very varnished mahogany chiffonier, or sideboard.
Is that audible to anyone?
Yep, it comes through.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can hear
that is awesome. So we have a lot of different, the voices are Google and Apple's high quality text-to-speech. It's the same voices they use right from your browser. And so it doesn't take up a lot of bandwidth. It's not quite at Audible level or anywhere close, if I have to be honest, but it's one of the features that I really love about Open Library, because it means that younger children or folks who might not speak English as a first language have more opportunities to experience our content. And it also works for other languages. And of course, we have an option to download the PDF or EPUB. It's a very similar story for books that are lendable. So I'm going to go back here to openlibrary.org. The difference between the read and the borrow button is that these borrowable books are often much newer books, oftentimes that are under copyright, that we lend out as a California state accredited California library under this thing called controlled digital lending. You can go to the website and read all about how it works. And we typically lend out one copy of each book that we have in our physical archives. So that means if you're reading Stephen King's The Green Mile, it's because we've rightfully acquired a copy and it's sitting happily in a box within our physical archives. And so if we borrow this book, you can see that we'll have a 2-week loan period, so we can return the book. Otherwise, the experience is very similar. There is an option to read offline for 2 weeks in the same type of protected format. It requires the installation. It requires you to also have an Adobe Digital Editions account and some sort of compatible reader. But we have an FAQ on frequently asked questions on archive.org and Open Library that can guide you through that process. But for now, I'm going to return this book so that other folks can also enjoy it. And oftentimes on Open Library, one will see that there are books with wait lists. However, because the National Emergency Library, this is only for a short period, as I explained in the beginning of the call. We are suspending wait lists and working with libraries across the country just to make sure that during this critical period, everyone who needs it, students, educators, librarians, have access to books and resources. So now getting into the interesting parts, which is how can people, as Jessica asked, help contribute in a way that doesn't necessarily require anyone else helping out. And here you can see that Lisa last edited this book because Open Library is a wiki. And the only thing that you need in order to start contributing metadata is an Open Library account, which just requires an email. You don't need a library card. Your email is your library card. And here you can update the cover, subtitles. We can see that there might be information that's missing, for instance, a table of contents. And if you don't know if the book has a table of contents, oftentimes in the book preview, we'll get an idea, we'll be able to see the front matter as a part of the preview. So in this case, it looks like maybe there isn't a table of contents, but we can see a lot of the copyright information if we wanted to fill in some of the edit details. So contributing metadata is a great way to get started on Open Library. For the rest of the world, one of the ways that they can help out is by sponsoring a book that they believe in. So this is, as I was mentioning, one of the ways where anyone in the world can help make Open Library more inclusive and represent the values of our local communities, whether that's for people who want to read comic books, or for musicians who are learning jazz, or for people who are studying physics and electromagnetic theory. And there are a lot of different options and tutorials on how this works and frequently asked questions. So that's the meat and potatoes, as it were, of openlibrary.org. But one of the reasons I bring up the editing features is they don't only apply to books. And so if I go back to that sponsorship page, there's still an edit button. And if I click it, it gives me the ability to edit the content of our Open Library pages themselves. Now, this is slightly more restricted than our book pages. Book pages, anyone with an account can edit. Our wiki pages, one needs librarian access. And I think if I go to user group, this will show us all of the different user group types that we have. One of them is librarians, and you can see who is on our librarian list. For contributors in the community, we would love to get more people added to the librarian list so that they can help edit pages like our subjects, for instance. So here, this is a page that we manually update. Let's see, we have books about cats, for instance. The layout of this page isn't fantastic. It's certainly not competitive with a lot of other websites out there, yet this could be an opportunity for us to work together and just jump into Slack anytime we have questions about how things work. So that's another opportunity. One is editing metadata on Open Library for books and authors. That's another thing I should probably mention, is if we go to a book like Matilda by Roald Dahl, then a big difference between archive.org, if we go to archive.org details books, I'll let that load for a second. A big difference between archive.org and Open Library is that Open Library has a first class representation of authors. And so you can really easily at a glance see all of the books that are available for an author, whereas authors are represented as strings or as plain text, if that's a more familiar concept, on archive.org. And so if we click on a book we do have the opportunity to search. Let's see. I don't even necessarily see a creator or author here, which is a little annoying within itself. But we can, on many books, you can click on creator and it will bring you to the search results. So it's usable, but I think I much prefer being able to see all of these tags associated with authors and all of their books. And authors can similarly be edited. And this way we can link up authors to Wikipedia and Wikidata and enable patrons to take advantage of Open Library, but also to jump to other websites. So something that is outside of the scope of Open Library itself is on Wikipedia. If we go to if we go to one of my least favorite topics, Library of Alexandria, on Wikipedia, and we search for ISBN, we can see that the Internet Archive is actually backing a lot of the different, hopefully I'm right here. Oh, not that one. Search for another ISBN. A lot of the books here, wow, I'm not having very good luck. Well, this is, I feel like I should have a better idea of which books are going to take me directly to archive.org, because I definitely have this one. No? Oh well.
On the right, it looked like there was something mentioned. If you go back, the like 118.
Oh, 118?
119, 120. I see archived. It's Wayback
so that
Machine.
has a Wayback
okay.
Machine.
No,
yeah.
okay.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time on this failed demo, but I know that a lot of these actually do link directly to the book. Okay, well, sorry about that. But anyway, connecting Wikipedia to the archive.org and Open Library books is another great opportunity to help people access materials faster. So I'm going to jump back to the Getting Started guide, because there are two other classes of opportunities to answer Jessica's question, which got us started. And those fall under librarianship and also communication specialism. So one of the things that Lisa has been working really hard on is making sure that we have librarian guides, and this is on openlibrary.org. Is that under the About page, Lisa?
Sorry, it's under Help. So more Help, and then there's an FAQ for editing.
Okay, so if I go to under Help, you said, and then
how to edit.
So this has a guide with all sorts of librarian considerations that Lisa has helped put together. How do I edit book records? With a ton of different examples.
Some of it might still be out of date, so if you come across something that doesn't seem to make sense, just message me.
Mm-hmm. And improving our documentation is one big opportunity, not only on Open Library itself, but on our wiki on Open Library. So this wiki on github.com/internetarchive/openlibrary/wiki is a great place to get information about our current projects, to learn about our different metadata standards, and also to get an idea of who the different community members are and what their roles or responsibilities include. You can also find things like our feature roadmap or a design ecosystem diagram, which tells which kind of gives background information on the types of users or patrons that take advantage of Open Library. Let's see. And all of these are editable by the community. Another way that you can help is if you notice a problem on openlibrary.org, such as we went to the subjects page and all of these subjects kind of look like they're left aligned rather than taking advantage of the full real estate. So we might want to open a new issue. And so on the main GitHub page, if we click on issues, anyone in the community should feel empowered to open up a new issue, which is either a question or a feature request or a bug report. We can open up a bug report and provide information, and then this will show up on the issues list. And that is a great way to keep the engineering community busy. And if you want to test the latest and greatest beta features, then if you go to openlibrary.org, but then you click on the URL and you stick the letters DEV, like for developers, before openlibrary.org, this will bring you to a development version of Open Library with whatever new features we currently have. So if we click on Chomsky's Understanding Power, I think we'll see there might be different buttons that have better accessibility characteristics, but I'm not positive. Dev also takes a little bit longer to load, unfortunately. Oh, maybe we're not on the right branch. But and when you are a librarian, you'll see some extra tools like add to staff picks. That's yet another way that the community can help out, is librarians can add books that will then appear in our Books We Love carousel. Okay, any questions so far? How are we doing?
Just a question. Did you just say that the Books We Love carousel can be updated by librarians?
Yes. Okay.
I think that might be a mistake.
No, they can.
Okay.
Librarians should be able to edit our Books We Love carousel through that first button.
Okay.
And if not, double check for me, because I would love our librarians to have that feature.
Sure.
The dream is that any librarian who has kind of demonstrated responsible decision making for, given their permissions, we would love to make it so that they can create their own displays and carousels and make sure all these lists are updated, so that every month or every day we could have new content that our patrons can experience. Which brings me into more of our librarian projects. The first one is documentation and standards and guides, and Lisa is a great person to coordinate with on those efforts. Lisa, I know you've already gone through a lot of this during our last community call, but would you be willing to describe some of these other librarian efforts, namely the deduping and fixing authors?
Sure. So if you've already spent some time maybe building your reading lists or just poking around on the site, then you might already have noticed that sometimes if you look up a book, it happens frequently with series. Harry Potter should be pretty well fixed, but a lot of times series, because the titles are frequently the same, the records include all volumes of a series rather than a record per volume, which is really how it should be. So these sort of things need to be cleaned up. Sometimes you get fake authors. Frequently they're imported from Amazon, because Amazon has a lot of seller data, not data created by librarians or archivists. So the data is sometimes a bit off. So you get just misspelled author names, or you get a publisher instead of authors. So these things as well, you might find them, and those things need to be cleaned up as well. Random House Value Publishing, Mech, if you want to find an example. I think if you look up author, or either RH Value Publishing as author, you'll see an example of that. Ali's been working on it. So those are, and also sometimes you have duplicates. So you have many versions of Romeo and Juliet, and there really only needs to be one version of one work record of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. There may be others by other authors, adaptations, etc., but there really should be only one for Shakespeare, so that someone can clearly know which one they're looking for if they're searching for a work by title. So these things are all things that need to be cleaned up.
And on openlibrary.org, when I, as you said, if I look up, let's go to an author and we'll say J.K. Rowling, for instance, then librarians will see that there is a merge author tool. And here's yet another way that we can improve the quality of the website. Now, Jessica, I'm not assuming that everyone is either an engineer or a librarian. Those just happen to be two classes of opportunities. Some of them are more general, which is just like a beta tester, a QA tester, people who can open up issues, people who can test our features as they go out. That is all another great way for folks to help. And then finally, I think that one of the most exciting opportunities is in getting the word out and producing content. So on blog.openlibrary.org, we oftentimes have guest authors that either have librarian backgrounds or are just book lovers or domain experts who want to write a post about some of the things that we're doing. And I would love to work with people on getting more either blog posts out about, let's see, Jenica, who works at the Internet Archive, is currently writing a blog post every month about celebrities and their favorite books. And so if I look for like David Bowie blog, archive.org, then we'll see the books beloved by David Bowie. And I think on Open Library, there should also be, so we have all the books, but I think, let's see, if I go to openlibrary.org/people/book lists, then we can see a set of the celebrity lists that we have so far. And these are currently done manually. And so that's a project that we would love more contributors to work on. It's kind of a scoped thing where we can choose a celebrity, find their books, find them on Open Library, and then create a book list. And then anyone in the world can then go to those pages and browse those books. That's kind of a scoped project that people could help with. There are also resource guides. I know that Alexis, for this one, I'm going to have to, where am I going to look here? Probably on Slack. Let's see, archive.org, resource guides. There we go. I'm going to add this in the doc as well. This is something that Alexis Rossi, our developer of collections, put together, which is a guide through archive.org, and they show guides for kids with activities, books on mythology or other resources. It's not only books, I guess. And creating these types of guides either on archive.org or Open Library are another huge opportunity. See, resource guides. And currently Elizabeth is kind of coordinating that. The way that Open Library works is we typically find, or we delegate different projects to leads. That doesn't mean that they will have the final word on everything. It just means that if you are a new contributor and you're trying to learn more about the program, then the leads are a perfect person to get help with routing or ask questions to. And again, on our GitHub, in our wiki, there's a table which enumerates the different leads. And I'll copy that link and put that on this guide as well. So we'll say, if you're interested in participating in a project, please contact the appropriate team lead. All right. So the resource guides and the celebrity guides are definitely opportunities, and writing tweets, meaning tweets that will go on our Open Library Twitter, is also a great opportunity. So unfortunately, we can't give people access to the account, but I'm happy to tweet things out. And if we were to come up with a weekly tweet idea, or maybe like holiday tweets or anything of this nature, those are all things that help. So that's a brief overview of how to get started, how to contribute either as a librarian, a beta tester, a technical engineer, or also a communication specialist, some of the opportunities that exist and some of the people associated with those opportunities. I want to jump back to Google Summer of Code really briefly because there are 3 great resources here that I think the community might really value even outside of the scope of Open Library for getting started. And the tips and examples for Google Summer of Code proposals is also just a wonderful guideline for writing your own proposal. On Open Library, we have these things called epics, which are larger projects. See, if I go to Open Library and then I go to issues and I filter by epic here. So sorry, I know I'm going quickly. There's no way everyone is gonna be able to reproduce all of the things that I'm doing here. I apologize about that, but just to give you a first taste so you know what questions to ask. These are all issues that are epics, and they are larger projects, such as bot opportunities, how to write bots to fix data at scale for Open Library, and we'll talk about that in a second, or importing books from the year 2010 to present, or also re-indexing our Solr search engine, migrating Open Library from Python 2 to 3. A lot of these things are epics that when we click on them, we'll see that there are a lot of different tasks that are enumerated. You can go through the checklists. However, if you wanted to create an epic or a proposal for a larger project, this is a great page to see how we do that. We try to keep things really focused and realistic and metric driven. And so there's a set of questions that you can ask about how do we measure these things? Why do I have confidence that we can increase it from one number to another number? What is the evidence? What are the risks? And then I've kind of gone through this process myself and given some Q&As for folks to follow. So I mentioned bots. Bots are somewhere in between librarianship and engineering. We have a separate project. Instead of Open Library's GitHub, if you add -client to the end, then we have a bot that you can use to make changes, either to fetch data or make changes in bulk, like adding titles to a lot of books, or fixing the titles if the capitalization is wrong, or adding authors if you happen to know of an author for a set of missing books. So the Open Library client is another opportunity. Guy, do you want to talk really briefly about some of the work that you've done with the Open Library client?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working on trying to tackle some, I guess, low-hanging fruit with data cleanup and like really obvious things that a script can fix. A lot of the data problems are only like a human can really like decipher, but in some cases there are really stupid simple things that a script can do. And so the way that Open Library client and Open Library bot interact is the client is really how someone touches the Open Library database. And once you have identified a problem and have written scripts for a problem, you can essentially add that script or add that bot to the bot's repo. Specifically, what I've been working on is for every item that has been scanned by the Internet Archive, there's what they call an OCA ID or an Internet Archive ID, and some of those records are kind of conflated. I've also been adding book covers to books in the Open Library database that have an Internet Archive scan but don't have a book cover just yet. I think there was somewhere on the order of 600,000 books that needed covers, and around 50,000 books that had an Internet Archive scan but didn't have the proper ID. So that's what I've been working on.
Woohoo. Thanks so much, Ski. Yeah, so hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have 600,000 books more that will have covers. Okay, so those are our bots. There's the Open Library client, is the page that we're on now, which is the actual tool that you can install on your computer, and then you configure it with your archive.org accounts, and it allows you to write these tiny little scripts which could have really big impact. Like, this is all it takes to add a book cover, these 10 or so lines. And you can also use it directly from a command line. Anyway, we can go over the client at a different time. Anytime someone writes a bot to make a bulk cleanup, we have a separate repository, the Open Library Bot. Open Library Bots has a list of all of the different projects that people have done in the past, so that you can easily go in and see what was the code that they ran, were there any mistakes, or how can I do something similar. So I'm going to just close these tabs, the bots, the clients, and the team leads, and the resources. And I think it's probably pretty close to the end of the tour. The last thing that I would love to show off is our 2020 roadmap, so that everyone has an understanding of what our goals are as a community. And I think people will really find this useful because it provides around 15 years of context about how Open Library and the Internet Archive started their book programs, how we got to where we are today. It gives you a little information about how to talk about Open Library. In general, we really don't talk about policy as much as we can, just because none of us are lawyers. And so it's really easy to say something that might get misinterpreted or might not be accurate. A lot of the policy stuff is really challenging, especially when we start talking about international, given that we are a California library. But this at least gives us some background. Like, if someone says, is Open Library an actual library? You can say, oh, well, in 2007, we did receive official accreditation as a special library from Rush Brandis with the California State Library System, and you can read all of that information. I have provided an analysis of how Open Library stacks up to other similar to other similar programs out there like Goodreads or Overdrive. And because of those characteristics, we've hypothesized that there's a huge opportunity right now for us to focus on distribution and reaching more book lovers. And so that was the core of our 2020 plan. And so if you scroll down, you can see all of the different areas where we're trying to make progress. And so, Jessica, I would also be completely enthusiastic if folks did want to create their own plans and epics that we might want to add here. And this kind of is just like a guiding light on what ideas might be interesting. Okay, so I've talked enough. That's an hour and 15 minutes. I would love to stop screen sharing just for a moment here and take some time to field questions, see if I was able to answer some of the questions that you may have had, and help with next steps. First of all, thanks for taking the time to listen. I know that was a lot.
I did have a question. So anyone could edit the celebrity book list, is what you're saying?
So the celebrity book list project and our resource guides are currently coordinated by a um, Alexis Rossi is doing the resource guides, and Jenica is running the celebrity. Jenica and Wendy, I think, are running the celebrity lists. But that is a great program for people to jump into, because it's also, there's a huge opportunity for folks to experiment with becoming more technical, meaning there's a JavaScript way to take a list of open library book IDs and automatically add them to a book list. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but for the celebrity program, usually every month Jenica chooses a new celebrity, and we try to have volunteers who help us identify all of the right books on Open Library. And then there's a special account, a Open Library account called Book Lists, which our volunteers can log into and then either add the books directly onto that list, or we can write a script which takes a list of Open Library IDs and kind of like a zipper, just adds all of them into that list. So not everyone will have access to that account, but I have no problem giving everyone access on this call to that account, as long as we don't see any abuse or inappropriate use. But I wouldn't expect that.
Oh, well, maybe it could be where on the volunteer page it shows like special projects that you listed, the book list and also the resource guides, and then mention how, because it still sounds very confusing to me, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, you're right. We do have a here. I always feel bad when I'm trying to find these resources as people are just waiting on the line here. So let me share my screen once again. And on Slack, 58 replies, goodness. You can see that we do have a tutorial here. And yes, here's also the user and password for this account. We have instructions on the whole thing, and even doing the JavaScript commands, and then I can publish all of this as a separate guide and give some examples step by step on how this happens. Any other questions?
I kind of have another one. So
All right.
sorry. All these like pages on the Open Library, since they're outdated, how are people going to go about like editing them? Because it's only a few people have permission to view those.
So Lisa has been coordinating a lot of our librarianship efforts, and that includes making sure that folks have access to librarian accounts after they've demonstrated that they use those permissions responsibly. And until then, I think Lisa's a great person also to coordinate some of those efforts with. So if you find a page that looks like it should be edited, then you can send it either in Open Library G and tag Lisa and or myself or Drini or Charles, and we'd be happy to help make those edits. And then as we have confidence that the right processes are being followed, then we can grant people access as a librarian and just go from there.
Then it would mean that like the volunteer page would show like roles that people can have based on the access they have to what they can work on, right?
Sure. Yep.
Yep.
And we can potentially create a Google Doc where we, maybe that's a good way to do it, is have a Google Doc where we can edit it together as a team, and then we can bring it up during our community calls. And if everyone likes the changes, then we can add it to the official Open Library pages. Any other questions? Was this, rather than asking, was this helpful? I'd like to ask, did you either learn something that you weren't familiar with prior, or did this answer a question that you had? And I would love to know if that is the case, what you might have learned, or what question it answered.
So yeah, on my side, I got very, very immediately an overview of both what generalists have available and what different skill sets are useful. But then I'll also personally just some quick takeaways. I could do this next week. That is possible.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that. Don, do you have any thoughts? Or Eddie, also, did you find this introduced anything that you didn't previously know about?
Yeah, let me, can I share my screen for a sec?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, let me see. Sorry, it's kind of a perennial problem. Like, I did all this work. Can you see the screen? Okay,
yep.
on Philip K. Dick. So when you search Philip K. Dick, the first thing you come up with, of course, is this problem with the ebooks. And I know you guys are working on that. But then to even go back to everything, you know, you're never sort of at his page. And even if you go, oh, this must be his page down here, it's not. And you really have to kind of go and click on the author to get to any kind of, oh, okay. So I'm wondering if there was a way that could be, you know, a little more. And then plus, you know, you have these first published and most recent, which is a great thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions, but that was the first. And but just to see how, I mean, there's 457 works here still, and especially if you go to the later ones, it's just it seems like it's never ending. And I spent so many hours doing this, and it's great because it's almost like a thing that will never end, but I realize it's just one author. So that's about it.
I would also like to address some of the folks on our chat channel who are asking great questions. First, Ali said that Ali learned about different library projects, and gave him confidence to make small contributions on the engineering side, not only raising issues, but I think the Open Library client sounds intimidating at first, but is a big opportunity for librarians to also gain exposure to writing small scripts. And I also want everyone to have confidence that Open Library isn't just a community of you know, self-serve you know, people who do find, you know, low-hanging fruit opportunities. We really are trying to build a community here and empower people to be better librarians, empower people to be better engineers. And if that means folks want my office hours over weekends or other times, I'm happy to show you how to use these tools. Happy to I know that Drini has spent a ton of time with Lisa in the past, just pair programming and talking about JavaScript and Python, and using not only our tools, but just generally tools that folks need to be more effective community members and informed citizens. And I'm definitely committed to helping there as well. So if that means that there's someone who doesn't have a classical background in engineering, and they want to, even if they don't have a script in mind, they just want to walk through an example to see how this all comes together, I would be happy to do a session on the Open Library client and show how it gets installed, and also just write a very small script and work with other people as they do the same thing. Another question that I saw was how to talk about the difference or the sameness as libraries of Open Library and the Internet Archive. This is one that we get a lot. As a nonprofit, we could probably be doing a much better job with branding. And I think one of the confusions is not only between archive.org and Open Library, open libraries. I'll spend just a minute demystifying this. The Internet Archive is the parent organization that does all of this wonderful work. They have a website, or we have a website called archive.org, which is where the files live. They are basically our digital repository and warehouse of materials. A lot of folks are surprised to learn also that on archive.org, not only staff, but the users, patrons can upload their own items. So it's kind of like a public Dropbox. There's an upload button. You can add files. So if you're an author rather, and you wrote your own book and you want to license it as Creative Commons, for instance, then you could upload that to our community collections. So insofar as being a library, I would say that archive.org in the Internet Archive, the Internet Archive is the library, and Open Library is the card catalog. It's the experience that has been custom tailored for our patrons to interact with our books. And Open Library, something that I didn't mention before, is not just a library of books that the Internet Archive has available. It's also a catalog of over 24 million additional titles that we may not have yet, and which patrons can help add to our collections through the sponsorship program, or by linking to other libraries across the country that might have them. So if I quickly do this share one last time, and then I go to openlibrary.org. Again, if I click on one of these sponsorable books, these are books that are in our catalog, but that we do not have on archive.org within our library. And you will see that within the sidebar options, there's an option to visit other libraries that might have this title, calculate serial location, and here we see that UCLA has a copy. Maybe I can, well, it's too bad that it doesn't give me any options that are closer, but opportunity for improvement. Open Libraries, or Open Libraries Online, is the Internet Archive's partnership program, which enables libraries from around the world who have out of circulation books. Actually, why don't I spend just a minute talking about this, and I'm going to use my hands if that's all right. That's the easiest way. So the way that libraries work is they purchase physical books and then they lend them out to their patrons. And over time, because libraries only have so much floor space, and what happens is they'll take a large set of their collections and they'll cycle them out into oftentimes other physical archives or warehouses or buildings. And this is called their out of circulation collection. They're books that the library rightfully has access to. They paid for them, or folks have donated these titles to the libraries, but because they don't have enough floor space, their new material, or the highly requested material, gets checked out from their physical library, and the rest of their material becomes out of circulation. And one of the interesting opportunities that the Internet Archive has been pursuing is working with libraries across the country to do an overlap of all of the materials that are in libraries out of circulation holdings, and comparing that to all the things that the Internet Archive has digitized through their controlled digital lending library program. And if you overlap both of them, you get a smaller subset, the overlap of out of circulation materials that the Internet Archive has available. And the Open Libraries initiative is an attempt to help more of these physical libraries make their materials online. And so because of that, we're able to make their material, we're able to surface more of their materials and make them available to their patrons and beyond. Is there anything more that I want to say about that? I think that's probably a good primer on the Open Libraries program as well. That's a great question. So Open Library is the card catalog, it's the front end, it's the user experience, it's the app where people find their books. The books come from the Internet Archive and the files are on archive.org. And then the program is not just the Internet Archive, but there are a lot of libraries across the country who participate in this whole confederation. Another question is from Ishank. Does Open Library scan all of the physical books to digitize them, or do they have the original EPUB? So this is another good question. The Internet Archive does have some what are called born digital material, but the majority of the material that's in our controlled digital lending program comes from the fact that we either purchase or have donated to us our physical copies of these books. We scan them as human beings, one page at a time, and then OCR them. We do optical character recognition and basically make them digital and accessible for our patrons and our print disabled users, folks who have dyslexia or blindness. And then we make them available through our controlled digital lending program. There are occasions where, sorry for the background noise, we do have some born digital material, but it's certainly not the majority of our holdings. And another reason why the Open Libraries program is so important is folks are likely very familiar with Libby or Overdrive. Has anyone heard of these services or used them before?
Yep.
Okay, so Libby is kind of the new version of Overdrive. Overdrive is think of it as middleware. There's a company called Rakuten. They are a for-profit Japanese organization, and they help negotiate the lease of ebooks between libraries and publishers. And one of the reasons this business model exists is most libraries do not have engineering teams. They're lucky if they have a technical resource librarian, but they very, very rarely have someone who's programming and building something like a lending system. And as a result, a lot of libraries across the country, they don't have the same infrastructure that the Internet Archive has, and they don't have their own digital lending systems. Some do, like New York Public Library and the Boston Public Library, and maybe California State Libraries, and a few other exceptions do have some sort of engineering teams and digital infrastructure. But by and large, a lot of the municipality level libraries, some of the state libraries or town libraries across the country don't. However, more and more their patrons are asking for ebooks and digital books. And libraries would love it. They would absolutely love it if they could just somehow purchase a ebook and then, lend them out to people. But because technically, from an engineering standpoint, it's very hard and they don't have the resources, instead what they do is they rely on Overdrive to negotiate leases. That means they don't own the books, which is very problematic. And because Overdrive and the publishers kind of have a monopoly on the material, unlike with physical books, libraries often pay between 3 to 11 times markup for a 1-year lease and never get to actually own the book. They have to rebuy it at 5 times markup every 1 to 2 years. So what ends up happening is American taxpayers pay their libraries, and their libraries end up, paying 5x markup to Overdrive, which is, a Japanese company. So all the American tax-paying dollars go to Rakuten, And then, the publishers get rewarded, which is what we want. Publishers will get rewarded as well when we buy the physical books. But the real risk here is what happens if either Rakuten or one of these publishers decides to turn off their digital pipe. Well, suddenly all of the libraries across the country no longer have books that they own and are at a huge disadvantage to being able to lend out these books to their patrons. And so Open Library and the Open Libraries program and controlled digital lending through the Internet Archive is an alternative approach where we're trying to enable people to purchase, we're trying to enable libraries to purchase these books and then have an option, a responsible and respectful option that rewards publishers and authors, but still enables libraries to come into the digital world and serve our patrons better. Because for us, for nonprofits, it's all about how can we better serve our patrons? How can we make our materials more accessible? Sorry for going 6 minutes over time here, but I just wanted to make sure that I answered that kind of tangential question as well. And Ishank, does that answer your question all right? I know you're kind of typing away here. Yes, okay, perfect. Anyone else have a question that I might have missed?
I have a more involved question that might take more time than we have.
Okay. Well, why don't we see if there's a quick answer? Otherwise, the Open Library G Slack channel is a great place, or I can jump on a call with you later too.
Sure. So I guess there's been talks about changing the data structure, or like making certain strings into first-class objects. And is there a way to like test that on someone's like local Docker setup before like actually having to push it to dev or something like that?
Absolutely. There are ways to test that, because the Docker container, so for developers who are working with Open Library, it'd be very risky for developers to make changes on the openlibrary.org website. And so we also have the dev.openlibrary.org website. But that's usually where we test code after it's been submitted and already, kind of tested locally. And so the way that engineering contributors get started is we have a setup called a Docker setup, which is a piece of software you can install on your local machine, and it will pull down all of the dependencies and have an isolated, insulated development environment with all of the resources you need to run openlibrary.org. And inside of that Docker container, one of the pieces is a replica of our production database, which we can change the schema of and make the changes that you're asking about, Guy. I think it probably would be a better question for either office hours or for our community call, which happens every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. On Zoom. You can get that information from our Slack channel. But that is a great question. I appreciate you asking. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, it's been my complete privilege doing this. Oh, I see from Don. Awesome. Yeah, it's been my complete privilege getting to share more about openlibrary.org with y'all. It's a project that means a tremendous amount to me, given that Aaron was not only one of my role models, but one of my personal mentors. And it just feels completely amazing to be able to give back and make information more accessible to the world. And I'm so overwhelmingly happy to have been able to share this experience with so many of you, Lisa, Eddie, Guy, and now Ali and others. And thanks for investing your time and being here. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Jessica, for making this Zoom available and recording for us.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.